having accepted the invitation and for finding the time to be with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Professor Schiavo. Thank you very much, Professor Fracasso, for inviting me. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today. Usually I have the pleasure to talk to a different type of audience, both internally and externally, but I can tell you that today, having the chance to talk to such an audience of university students is such a great pleasure, because it gives me a lot of positive energy and joy. It's really a pleasure. So thank you very much for your invitation. As Professor Schiavo anticipated already, what I would like to do is, first of all, I wouldn't like to do this session as a download of information from my side. I would like to use the first probably 20-25 minutes to tell you a little bit about myself, about my career path, the company I work for. Maybe if you allow me, I'll give you a few tips about some specificities which I think are crucial in order to have a successful international career. And then I would like to use the last 30 minutes to have a very hopefully lively interaction with you. So please feel free to ask any questions, any reflections, anything you would like to ask during the last 30 minutes. If you agree with me, Professor Schiavo, I would like to share my screen so that we can, I hope technology will assist us. Okay. Okay,
yes, you
so
should be able to share your screen.
Do you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let's give it a try. It's funny because we tried it before and it was working perfectly. Do you see it now?
Yes, yes, now we see it.
Perfect. Great, so you see the first slide, right? The journey of international career in a relevant and demanding industry, correct?
Yes, indeed.
Perfect, so we can start. So my name is Massimiliano Di Domenico, and I'm heading the Communication, Government Affairs and Market Access function at European level for GSK. As I said in the beginning, I will give you a quick top-line overview of my international career path. And obviously, I will touch also a little bit on my personal life, because the two things are obviously strictly connected and one influences the others. So in a nutshell, I've been working in 5 different companies across 3 different industries, which is already by itself a huge learning curve in my professional experience, because changing industry is on itself is a big challenge for all of us, but it's also a fantastic opportunities to learn more, to understand more about different industry, and to broaden your views and perspective. Also have many different roles in these different industries, and it's quite a broad experience also in terms of role. I started in marketing and sales. I graduated, I'm not going to tell you the year I graduated because it could be embarrassing for me. Many of you probably weren't even born when I graduated at university, but I graduated in statistics and economy. So that's my background. My background is not a scientific background. So I started as an economist, and then in the course of my career path, I managed to specialize in what we call government affairs. I also had a very extensive geographic experience, and I can tell you that I lived approximately 50% of my life abroad, in those countries that you see on the right. So from the UK, where I'm living now, I'm currently based in London, to Brazil, where I lived in São Paulo, Italy, of course, where I lived in Rome and in Verona, and also in Belgium, in Brussels, where I lived twice, and in France, in the US for work reasons, but also for studying, and in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, for almost 3 years. So even this is another fantastic opportunity to broaden your views, experience, and perspective. As I said, it's not just about work. Your professional life influences a lot your personal life and vice versa. So whatever I do in my professional life, wherever I am, I always try to keep and focus some of my time in some specific hobbies or things which are particularly relevant to me and which help me to feel better as a person and as a professional. So on the top right, you will see sport. I do a lot of sport because it kills me to keep myself in good shape, both at physical level, but also mental level. I'm also very interested in charity. You will see on the top left a picture which was taken at Dinamo Camp. Dinamo Camp is a special place which is in Italy, in Tuscany, where we help kids with very, very serious disease to spend an unforgettable week of vacation, either by themselves or with their families, in this special place, which is fully organized to help them to enjoy a large number of activities. This is something that I do as a volunteer on a personal basis already since 7 years, but it's something that we also embraced as a company. And today there's more than 100 GSK employed volunteering on a yearly basis at Dinamo Camp. Other things, I like traveling. Of course, I used to travel a lot more before COVID. So on the top right, you will see some of the trips that I took with my family, with my French wife and my kids. One of my kids was born in Belgium, one was born in Rome. So it's a bit of international family. And then I always stick to some, what I call key point of references, which is the pictures at the bottom on the left. I'm 100% sure you all know who those two judges are behind me. Those two are, for me, a true point of reference and give me a lot of personal motivation to give always the best at whatever I do, personally and professionally. So let me give you a little bit of top line information about GSK. I'm not going to go into a great level of details because these are all public information that you can easily find through our website or in social media or anywhere. Basically, GSK is a big pharma company, but it's not just a big company. It's a great company, I would say. It's a company with clear values. The values of GSK are transparency, respect, integrity, and patient centricity. And these are values which are completely embraced and lived throughout the whole organization. Big company present all over the world, hiring, employing almost 100,000 people in more than 96 markets, big turnovers and huge historical tradition and innovation, and with a solid presence in many countries, including in Italy. In Italy today, we employ over 4,300 people, big turnover also in Italy, so with a strong and promising pipeline in terms of product for the future. We are in Italy since more than 100 years, and like I usually say, GSK is important for Italy in terms of employment, in terms of scientific development, in terms of investments in the country, but Italy is also important for GSK. So it's a bit of a mutual relation, obviously. Now I will touch very briefly about some of the things that the pharma industry did to respond to this COVID-19 pandemic. And then we'll switch on tips and suggestions. And again, I will not go very much into details because I expect there will be questions in the second part of the session, or if there are additional questions which we will not be able to address during the overall session, specifically on this part, please feel free to reach out to me. I am easily reachable through all the social media, and I'm more than happy to give more content on what I'm going to touch on as we speak. So this COVID pandemic has been really an unprecedented period for all of us, for any country, for any industry, for any person. And we all were a little bit caught unprepared, including the pharma industry. But I must say that the pharma industry had quite a fast reaction and tried its best to work to tackle this pandemic. We immediately understood that two things. One, that the partnership was crucial to get some tangible results to tackle this pandemic. And that's why we started, you probably noticed that a lot of different companies started getting together in order to put experience, science, investments together in order to come up with potential or realistic solutions, either in the vaccination areas or in other therapeutic areas, or in the area of corporate social responsibility or donation or emergency funds and so on. And I think never as in this year, the external stakeholders and the governments in particular understood very, very clearly that the industry, the pharma industry, first of all, wants to be part of the solution. And second of all, the pharma industry can and wants to play a crucial role in this, in managing and tackling this pandemic. And that's why there were a lot of interactions between pharma industry and the governments at different levels, at country level, at European level, and in many, many, many parts of the world. This helped us, the industry, to develop a large number of vaccines in a record timings. Usually to develop a vaccine, it takes from 10 to 15 years on average. The industry was able to develop a number of vaccines in a much shorter time. And I know this is a very hot topic nowadays. I'd like always to bring as an example, as a positive example, the UK, which is where I live now. The UK has been able to vaccinate over 37 million people in the whole of the UK. And as you have probably noticed, the numbers of COVID cases and the numbers of deaths have been declining regularly and now are up to levels which we can clearly say that the situation is currently under control. The industry, as I said before, has done also a lot in terms of donations and corporate social responsibility. So the industry has donated an enormous amount of money to different foundations, and has also contributed with donation of equipment, personal protection equipment, to a large number of countries. So that's in a nutshell what the industry has done. GSK in particular has been very, very active on many, many fronts. I have to say, in full transparency, it's not a secret at all that we are very, very late in the vaccine development area. We focused very much in a very important partnership with another big player called Sanofi, a big company from France, a big multinational. And unfortunately, this partnership has not yet developed the results that we were hoping for. The vaccine that we are developing together with Sanofi is we had to restart the R&D part, given the fact that under the phase 2, the results of the studies were not at the standards that we were expecting. So we had to restart all over again. So we're still hoping to get our COVID-19 vaccine by the end of this year. So definitely much later than all the other players. But we strongly believe that in this situation, more vaccines are available, the easier would be to tackle this pandemic. So that's in a nutshell about the industry's contribution. My current role, as I said in the beginning, is communication, government affairs, and market access. Let's break it down. Communication is very simple. My function runs all the communication activities, both internally and externally at European level. So I have a team based in London with me who interacts with all the European comms team all across Europe, and would put in place a communication strategy, again, both internally and externally, equally important. The internal comms part is as important as the external, especially in a period like the one that we are living. And we implement all the communication activities all across Europe. And we do this in full alignment with what we call the corporate communication team, which is another team based in London, which is 100% focused on all the corporate communication. So communication which is relevant to the company. Okay, so whatever my team communicates needs to be fully aligned with what the overall corporate communication strategy is. Then I have the government affairs team, which is fully based in Brussels. And again, it's a team of 6 highly specialized senior managers who engage with all the government affairs teams all across Europe. And also they engage with all the EU institutions in Brussels. Okay, government affairs in a nutshell means institutional relations. So any interactions with external institutional stakeholders, government, ministries, NGOs, you name it, are under the accountability of the government affairs team. And then there is the market access team. Market access is a very specific function of the pharma industry. I don't think there is such a function in any other industry in the world. And it's that function which is fully focused on making sure that once a drug is discovered by a company, and that's already taking a lot of years and a lot of investments, with a very, very minimal percentage to succeed in the discovery phase, once the product is successful and is approved at European level and then a country level, so the European Medicine Agency approves the drug, and then each single European country drug agency further approves that specific drugs, these market access teams work in close alignment with the local government to make sure that the product is accessible to the patient in a specific market. This requires a large number of negotiations from the scientific point of view, but also from the regulatory point of view, and also from the pricing point of view with the different governments. So that's a very technical and important part of the overall function. If I'm not being clear, please save your questions or your clarification for the next session, for the next half hour. My team, very quickly about my team, I already touched very briefly on it, but my concept is that my team is very, very broad from every point of view. I have 19 people in my overall team, 5 people directly reporting to me, and this is my leadership team. This leadership team is made by 5 people, 5 women, great professionals from 5 different nationalities. These 19 people are over from 10 different nationalities. And on top of these people, which is my direct team, I also have all the communication, government affairs, and market access heads in each single European country. They do also have a dotted reported line to me, okay? And I have a large number of interactions with the CGA and market access heads all across Europe. Okay, so on the right, I just put a couple of very simple examples. On the top pictures, it's me and 3 people in my Brussels office in front of the European Parliament. We have a lot of interactions with the EU institutions. We do a lot of things that even in this year of virtuality, we are able to put in place. I'll give you a very simple examples. We were able to organize virtual round tables with members of the European Parliament, members of the Commission, members of the Council of Europe, all together, and specific stakeholders, depending on the specific topic that we are addressing this roundtable. And we were able to organize these things together with members of the European Parliament. So in the beginning, we were very, very concerned because our function, in particular the GA functions, has been historically working with a lot of face-to-face interaction. And we always thought that they would make a huge difference. We could never do a stakeholder engagement virtually. I can tell you that we had to review our belief, and we were able to manage these new challenges in a very, very successful way. So what are some of the skills that I think are very much needed in a role like the one that I'm having, which is a role, as you probably saw from the previous slide, which is quite complex because it's what we call an above market role. So you are not based in a market, you are above the markets, and you need to coordinate a large number of activities across a large number of countries, geographies, cultures, with different level of resources in the different countries. So it's quite a complex role in a very complex organization. I can tell you that GSK is quite a complex organization, typical of all the companies which are structured in a similar way. So no more, no less than any other similar companies. So here I put some of the words. I'm not going to cover all of them. I want to leave most of them for your thinking and reflection. But let me touch on a couple of these. You know, for example, people's management. People's management is one of the most challenging things that you will face in your career in the future. And it doesn't matter if you manage one person or two or three or a large number of people in the team. It will require a lot of specific skills. So that's an area which I am particularly focused. Also because personally, I take a huge level of satisfaction seeing people in my team growing within the organization and taking more and more responsibility and senior roles within the organization. So that's why this is an area where I'm particularly focused, and I invite you to think about it already at your very early stage of your career. People's management is crucial. Other things, obviously, is focus and prioritization. These two things are very much linked, of course, but when you work for a very complex and large organization, you will need to deal with a huge quantity of issues on a daily basis. So you need to make sure that you're able to prioritize and to focus on the real priorities. Otherwise, you risk to end up doing a bit of everything, but not delivering 100% in the most important areas for you and for the companies. Okay, so, and the last point that I will touch on this slide is obviously the deep understanding of the industry and the company you are working on, and a deep understanding of the government where you are living and where you are having interaction with. Okay, so that's extremely important. And I can tell you that the theoretical part is very, very, very important. And then there is also the real life. I'll give you very quick examples. When I moved to Brussels the first time, I was heading the Brussels office for a large multinational. When I arrived in Brussels, I thought I knew exactly how the EU institution works. And I had a good understanding, and I thought I was quite clear about it. But when you are actually working with them on a daily basis, you realize that in reality, things can be slightly different. The pace, the people you need to talk to, the stakeholder you need to engage. the messages that you can get across directly and the ones that you need to get across through other partners by building alliances. That's why the full understanding of the government and the stakeholders around the government is fundamental for a successful role in the CGA and market access area. Again, a few tips here, and I will do the same thing. I'm not going to cover each single one of these words, but I will touch on a couple of these, and I will leave the rest for your reflections. The first one that strikes me in terms of importance is the concept of change and the concept of challenge that comes with change. Change is a constant in our life, everywhere, in normal life, in a professional life. We need to deal with change on a daily basis. So it's important that you are fully prepared to embrace change, to accept change, to look at change as a positive thing, as a challenge. You need to be ready for change. Okay, challenge coming with change will be a constant. Whatever you will do, regardless if your career will be in public, in private, in big, medium-sized company, change will be a constant. Don't be afraid, be confident, believe in yourself, embrace change, and make the best out of it. Again, very personal experience and very short. When I changed industry, and I did it 3 times, when I changed countries, and I did it 7 times, when I changed roles, and I did it 14 times, there was always a little bit of, how can I say, tension there for me. Oh, I'm changing role. Oh, I'm changing industry. The change of industry was a huge change. Change of geography was a huge change. You know, living in Brazil and working in Sao Paulo was quite a different experience than living and working in Verona, for example. But if you look at the positive side of it, just imagine how much you will learn by changing industry, by changing role, by changing country. Imagine how much you will get out of your comfort zone and you put yourself under pressure to learn as fast as possible. This will make you professionally and personally very, very rich, very open-minded. So I strongly recommend to think about change with the most positive approach and mind you can have. Okay. Other things that I'd like to say is, you know, try to do your best always, whatever you do. I say there, always give 100% or more. The English, they used to call this concept as the extra mile. Go for the extra mile. If you're asked to do something, especially in the initial phase of your careers, hopefully if you will be doing some experiences as a stagiaire or industrial placement or a first role, first job, if you're asked to do something, try to do a little bit more, try to think the extra mile, try to prove yourself and to prove to the others that you can do, you're up to the job and you can do even more than what you're expected for. Okay, this will help you to go far. Be passionate, put passion in everything you do. And if you don't really like what you're doing, you should take the courage to change role, change country, change company, change job, but don't do something if you don't have the passion behind it. Okay, so these are again some of the tips. One last tip that for me is the most important, is the base of everything that I told you before, is always stick to your values and your ethics. This is the base, this is the most important thing. And this, believe me, will always pay off. It might take time, it might not, but it always pay off. Stick to your values. Respect your values, respect everyone else, and you will go far. And in this area, I think you can choose some inspiring examples. You saw in one of the pictures in the previous slides, I put there the picture of Falcone Borsellino. Those are for me examples, and I inspire myself to them when I think about values and ethics, and I keep them with me all the time. You can also choose people at work or people at university, maybe a professor who particularly inspires you, and you see that he has a strong attachment to values and ethics. Keep these people, under your radar. One person I learned a lot from this in this area, but also in all the previous things that I've said, and is one person I had the pleasure and the honor to work with, is the president of your university, Dr. Daniele Finocchiaro. I learned a lot from him in this area and the previous one, and I can tell you that, if you put yourself someone like him as a point of reference, it will help you a lot to be successful. I think we are doing pretty good with time, so I wanted to close this with sharing with you the QR codes of some of the activities that we do in GSK to help and support young talent to build up experience within GSK. We have a couple of global programs and a couple of programs in Italy. On the right side, you see the global one, which is apprentices of stages, students and graduate. We call this industrial placements or career opportunities. And for Italy, we have a program which is amazing. It's a great program. It's called Future Leader Program. You need to apply for this program. You need to qualify. You need to run a number of interviews. And if you succeed and you are included in the FLP program within GSK, it's a fantastic journey, which will, in 99% of the cases, will bring you at the end of this Future Leader Program into a final position with GSK, and you will be a little bit positioned in a kind of a high potential career path within GSK. So I highly recommend you to have a look at these QR codes. And again, if you have any additional questions or reflections, you can reach out to me either directly or through Professor Schiavo and Professor Fracasso. I think that's all on my side. I would like to thank you all for your attention. I hope I was clear enough and not too fast. But when I talk about these type of issues, I could talk for hours. So I try to do my best to be top line, not to take too much time, but at the same time to give some key messages that I wanted to share with you.
Thanks a lot, Massimiliano. It was very, very passionate, for sure. Very interesting and very inspiring, I would say. I suppose I'm too old to apply to the Future Leadership Program, but it's too bad. Anyway, so I urge the student to maybe write their questions on the chat so that maybe we can then order them and then give you the floor. I'll exploit the privilege of having the floor now for asking myself a few questions. And well, I would have many, but let me just stick to a couple of them. In one of your tips, you stress the importance of having deep knowledge of the environment somebody works in, so both the company and the context, right? But then there is a little bit of a trade-off between this and embracing change, because if you change industry, for instance, it might be difficult to get the inside knowledge that is important, right? So how can we, or would you balance this, especially for students, for those young graduates who sort of start out in the job market? And my second question is on this vaccine issue. And well, this is more of a curiosity, but I have the feeling that vaccines are not a very profitable line of business for pharma industries, because companies, I think, make more money by making so sickness sort of persistent over time rather than solving them once and for all. Is this completely wrong, or not? Well, that's plainly like this.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Both very, very good questions. So let me start with the first one, the trade-off of managing changes. I think, and I start from my own experience, and then probably I try to think from a university student perspective. So the trade-off that I did when I changed industry or when I changed country or role is I tried my best to bring with me in the new role or in the new country or in the new industry all my background experience. So when I change industry, for example, I always think and challenge myself, how can I use at best my learnings from my previous experience in this new industry or in this new company? And this is something that has worked really, really well in my case. For example, when I was working in tobacco industry is a very complicated and very controversial industry. And it was very difficult to have any interaction with some government or government bodies. So there we were forced to build alliances with third parties in order to get our messages across. So this is something that I've tried to leverage when I joined the pharma industry. I tried to rely much more on external alliances. As a pharma industry, it was much easier to have direct interactions with governments compared to my previous industry. But still, I thought that the direct interactions were not enough. You also need to build alliances. So this is, for example, a concrete example on how I brought the previous experience in my new role. And the same apply for, when you change countries, some of the things that I learned by living in a specific country, I try to keep them with me when I go to another country. And when you have lived in my case, like in 7 countries and worked in many other countries, this is a huge treasure that you have with you. I mean, this gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of understanding. So that's fantastic. When I think about a university student who is, of course, not yet so experienced because he has not entered the world of work yet, what I can suggest is to, it's very, very obvious what I'm about to say, but to do your best and more in your role, in every role that you do. When you are a student, do your best and more. Give all you can. Be as committed as possible. And learn as much as possible, as much as you can. Whatever you will do now, it will be your little treasure in your next phase, whatever we'll do next. If it's a master, if it's a stage, if it's a proper job, whatever you will have done before, it's a bit of your treasure. So keep building on that. I don't know if it was clear on the first question. On the second question, it's a very, very valid point. And you're not wrong at all, because you cannot compare vaccines to what we call specialty therapeutics. If you think about oncology products, for example, they are 2 completely different things, both in terms of R&D, in terms of investments, in terms of impact on the health of the populations, plus vaccines. The big difference of vaccines compared to any other drugs is that the vaccine is not for patients. You get vaccinated to prevent, so it's a preventive tool, which is a completely different thing, even mentally, than a drug, than a pharmaceutical product. And in terms of profitability, yes, vaccine is not at the highest level at all. And by the way, some of the most criticized vaccines today, for example, the AstraZeneca and the Johnson & Johnson, are the ones who have been put in the market at the lowest price possible. So this shows you that, the industry is really, really making an effort to contribute to this pandemic. But at the same time, we need to think that not only in the vaccine, but in the pharmaceutical field as a whole, it's very important that innovation, science and innovation is recognized and it's rewarded. And if it's not, the risk is that the companies, they are not to invest that much in developing new drugs. And if the industry doesn't do it, who is going to do it? So, to answer your question, you're absolutely right. Vaccine is not at the top, but still, there's a lot of investments and work behind the discovery of a vaccine.
Thanks a lot. Now, I have a question from Professor Fracasso, but if there is any question from the students, then Andrea will wait. And I think we'll be happy to wait also. So let me see. Yeah, Giacomo. Yeah, would you like Giacomo to ask your question yourself, or shall I read it out from the chat? He's asking which kind of academic curricula is the pharma industry looking for. So, for instance, I mean, our students are students in international studies or international relations. By and large, you Massimiliano, you also said that you did not graduated with a STEM degree. So what would be the path to towards sort of a position like yours? Of course, in due course, right? Because there is a long it's a long shot from university to where you are now, I think. Sure.
No, it's another very good question, and obviously for a company like GSK, the background can be completely different, can be very broad. As I said before, I'm not a scientist at all. I don't have a scientific background, but I built up a very good career in a pharma big company. It depends very much on the area which is the most interesting for you. Obviously, if you want to work in R&D or in medical or in what we call the field force, which is scientific information, obviously you need to have a scientific background. So like either pharmaceutical degree or medical degree or a similar degree. But if you are interested in government affairs, in comms, in I don't know, in marketing or in other fields, other areas, then there are different profiles that the company is looking for. What I can tell you, for example, in supply chain, for example, the best thing to do is to go into the website of gsk.com. And when you see there my career opportunities, you see a lot of different examples, and you even see employees with different background working in different functions, telling them about their career path, how they started working with GSK, what their background was in terms of studies, and so on. But in a nutshell, to answer your question, I think almost any kind of university degree can be potentially interesting for a company like GSK.
Okay, very good. So there is hope for everyone. That's good. Andrea, would you like to ask your question? And then we'll collect others in the meantime.
Yes. So I would like to thank Massimiliano for the speech. Actually, I would like to encourage the students to ask questions, because Massimiliano is a really kind person, and as you see, he has tempted me to change my career as well, but that's another point. Anyway, no, I have 3 questions, if I may, but they are really different ones. So one is for students. So I suppose that you are involved in the employment, in the interviews, and in the process of employment of people at different levels. So I would like to ask you, what do you look for in a CV? Because sometimes, students have the idea that the more, the better, while, for instance, you were hinting to higher quality, and so how do you show that what you did was a high quality? So, and also, what are the personal traits that are successful, in the sense what you're looking for during an interview, or if you run, you know, a period of friendship. So this is for the students. My curiosity is a different kind. One is about, but it's about the school. So now that we look at the global affairs and vaccines, it seems that we are back, not really to the Cold War, but sort of, and the countries are, you know, like exerting power and projecting power through the vaccine provisions or promises to provide the vaccine. So what's your impression, given that GSK is not involved into that so far? And the last point is about the technology, this mRNA technology that is behind the vaccines by Pfizer and Moderna. Do you think that that is a new technology leading to other important vaccines or you know, drugs in the future that could be exploited? And so is there something that, you know, there are business opportunities but also career opportunities associated with the also with explaining people what these things are? We have understood that psychology and collective psychology is very important at the time. So this is my question. Sorry for being long.
No problem at all. That, again, very good question. So let me start from the first one, which is, in a nutshell, what do I look for when interviewing someone? What we look in a CV, and basically what we look is, as I said in my presentation before, the capability of the candidate to potentially adapt to a high level of changes, the capacity to work at a very, very intense pace, the capacity to be flexible as possible, the hunger for learning. And obviously, we also look at the experiences already put in place even in the university years. Let's remember that we all live in a very highly competitive world. Even when you are being interviewed by a company, even your competitors are coming from all over the world. And I can tell you that I am quite struck when I interview young students coming from the UK by the quantity and the quality of experiences that they build already during the university journey. It's amazing. And I can tell you that I have currently 2 future leader programs in my team. And I am very young, you know, they're 23 or 24, and I'm so pleased to see them. It's really, they are fast, curious, proactive. When I was talking about the extra mile, they think about more than one extra mile. So these are all the things that we look at. We try to look at the mindset, you know, the willingness to grow, the willingness to grow professionally, but also personally within a company. So these are some of the key things that we look at, and I invite the students to be particularly focused on. I hope I answered your first question. The second one is the vaccine Cold War. Yes, unfortunately, what we are looking at these days, it's there's a lot of politics included in this whole vaccine debate. Clearly, some of the vaccines which have been produced by AstraZeneca, for example, which is a British-Swedish company, they are being a little bit, because the total production is not living up to the expectations, so there's less doses. There's a lot of pressure from the countries to get these doses. And of course, due to the link of this company with the UK, there's a bit of better interaction between this company and the UK. That's why in the UK today, out of 37 million people vaccinated, 24 people have been vaccinated with AstraZeneca. So definitely the politics enter into this. I think also UK is, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, is a little bit using this vaccination rollout as a bit of a positive visibility for himself and for his government, showing the whole world that he's doing the things much better and much faster than Europe. Europe is not in a best spot at the moment, but I'm confident that it will come back up to speed. I think we should look at these things not as a sprint, but as a marathon. And it takes time to get this pandemic under control. We need to act fast, but we need to think that it takes time. So to answer your question, yes, unfortunately, there is a bit of politics in this debate. There is also a little bit of some countries tending to be a little bit selfish, because I think today every country, Italy included, realize that in situations like this, it's very important to be much more self-independent, to be able to produce more local level to manage this type of situation. So countries are finally waking up and understanding that a solid pharma industry and vaccine industry in its own country is very much needed. We are very lucky because in Italy we have a very, very strong pharma industry. Is an excellence at European level. But I think it's also important that this is widely understood by the government, by the politicians, by the regulators, and by the public opinion too. So that's, again, I hope I answered your second question. And on the mRNA, yes, you're absolutely right. This is today is considered the most innovative platform to deliver today vaccines, but tomorrow, even additional types of therapeutics areas, and it can make a real huge difference. That's why everyone is looking into that direction. GSK is developing a partnership with CureVac, and with CureVac, we are going to produce their COVID-19 vaccines in our Belgium manufacturing site. And on top of that, together, we are going to develop the second generation mRNA vaccine for COVID-19. But it's important also to think, and again, I'm not a scientist, but I learned this by the daily meeting that I have with our medical department in the vaccines. It's important to think about flexible platform, not just mRNA, because in the near future, we might have to have a flexible platform, other platform to develop similar vaccines. So it's important to invest in mRNA, but not only in mRNA.
Okay, very clear. And yeah, very fascinating. Okay, there is another question. Okay. So yeah, it's an interesting question. So this student is asking, why should she choose pharma as an industry? So what makes this industry interesting for young talented people?
That's a beautiful question, and I ask you very much for this question because it's a very simple answer for me. Working in the pharma industry, you can really make a difference for people's life, for the well-being of people. And when you work for a company like GSK, but for many other companies in the pharma industry too, and you see that your company is able to develop a drug and to make sure that the drug reaches the patients and changes the lives of those patients, I think it's a very, very rewarding and motivating phase for you. I give an example. If you look at the oncology area, where we are very, very active, when you see again that the products reaches the specific patients, and in the onco area, you can almost, especially in some parts of the onco area, you can almost clearly quantify the number of patients, and you see that the life changes for those patients thanks to all the effort that a company has put in place. I mean, it's really a huge sense of satisfaction. Other things is, for example, when you see what some companies, GSK is one of these, but I'm not too informed about the other ones. But GSK is very active also in making sure that the countries in the third world can have access to as many products as possible, and with specific advantage conditions in terms of prices. When you see these things, you really feel like you are working for a company and an industry which is making a difference in people's life.
So Rodrigo is asking how GSK has organized itself during the COVID time. So considering all the precautionary measures, so the quarantine and all this, and because now this is taking place at global scale, this probably has affected you very much, being a multinational companies, and also in having to take care of very sensitive products.
Very, very good question. So there is an internal element and an external element. The internal element is that obviously the way we work has been completely affected. Now everything is virtually organized. So we are all working from home, and we are all sticking to the local regulation in every country where we operate. And I can tell you that GSK is more strict than what the local regulations are. We've been doing this already for a year, and we have become, all of us, expert in this virtual world. So we can work very, very smoothly in spite of the difficulties of the virtual world. This is internally. Externally, we also had to face a lot of new challenges, because pre-COVID, we had a lot of our medical team and our scientific information team had a lot of interactions with healthcare professionals. Now, of course, all of these interactions have been translated into virtual, plus all of these healthcare professionals, of course, have been fully focused on COVID-19, rightly so. So this has had an implication in the interaction we have had with the healthcare professional on other therapeutic areas. I can tell you that even in this, in what we call the field, which is the medical team going to see healthcare professionals, and the scientific information going to see healthcare professionals and hospitals, we have improved a lot the interactivity by virtuality. So two major challenges that we adapted to very, very quickly.
Okay. So thanks a lot again. Let me see if there is a final round of questions. I think we are sort of promise to Massimiliano we would finish in around 1 hour. So
you're perfect on time.
I'm sure that in all the elements that have been put forward would be very precious for the students, also the opportunities you have mentioned. I have the feeling that the president, Chiaro, has joined us. So I wonder whether he wants to say a word or just greet you in also, although it's just virtually, before we stop. Otherwise, we move on.
It's too bad he wasn't there when I mentioned him.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, thanks a lot, Massimiliano.
Thank you.
Once again, we really hope there will be other occasions to have you, well, here, let's say, in Trento at the school, in person. I think your enthusiasm was really perceived even through the screen, and that is a very good signal, I think, especially in these challenging times where we are all sort of facing the challenge of restructuring and adapting our daily routine. It's surely a good signal for the students. So thanks again for having found the time to be with us tonight.
It's my pleasure. And as I said in the beginning, if there are additional questions or any requests of clarification, Professor Schiavo and Professor Fracasso, you know how to reach me.
Very good. Thanks again. And so.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye and take care.
Bye. Thank you.
All the best.